Here we go. All right, volume up. Let's see. Oh, no. Mute? Unmute. We're on mute. Okay, hey, Marissa, can you say something?
Hi there, everyone.
That's loud. Okay, fabulous. Before we begin, let me just introduce her very briefly. Okay, so this is me and Marissa. Marissa did not send me a headshot. This is a picture of us when we were 8 at my 8-year-old birthday party. She is currently a vice president at Rubenstein. She's worked at Z100. How many of you have listened to Z100? We have a lot of New Yorkers. Wonderful. In promotions and media relations, she was an intern at All My Children, ABC Daytime, and Soap Opera Weekly. And she has a bachelor's in communications at NYU with an emphasis in mass media and public relations. So let's switch out and invite her in. Fabulous. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
I'm good. Let me just see if I can full screen this. Oh, who cares? I don't care. That's fine. So welcome to my class. Let me see if I can give you a little rotate of the class. Class. Okay, fabulous. Okay. So thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed my fast forward lecture.
I did. I took a couple of notes.
Awesome. So just to start, why don't you tell us what you do? What do you do on a day-to-day basis?
I do a lot of things. I kind of think of myself a little bit as a jack of all trades. It totally depends on the day. It depends on the client. You know, as you were saying with communications, it depends on the industry. I work with a lot of different types of clients, from food to arts and culture to nonprofit. I work on accounts where I work with them throughout the year. I work on accounts where I work with them around a specific campaign. So it really depends. You know, as you mentioned, a lot of different firms have different sections. We kind of do everything here. We don't do advertising, but we do strategic communications and public relations, which is kind of media relations. So, you know, one second I'll be crafting messages and talking points. The next minute I will be, well, a couple of minutes later, I'll be calling or following up about a pitch I sent to a reporter. It really varies, which I kind of like. I like that it varies in activities, and I like that it varies in topics.
Can you tell us a little bit about the differences between a pitch and strategic communications? You just use those two words in sentences. So if you could maybe define them and talk a little bit about the difference.
Okay. Well, I won't be able to define it in the Charisse way, but the strategic communications in my way is, you know, thinking and crafting the message of how you want to explain whatever the product is, whatever the message is, whatever the campaign is. You know, in those key words, what are you trying to get across? What is this food festival all about? What is this campaign and, you know, this nonprofit award ceremony all about? So kind of coming up with the key messaging that you want to talk about and focus on, and in turn that creates talking points.
So can you tell us a little bit about, you know, a food festival PR? Because that is definitely not described anywhere in their textbook. So a little bit about, you know, the kind of clients that you have, the wide variety, and what industry they're coming from, and what they require as compared to political communication.
Right. So, you know, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but in terms of those kind of political public relations, I don't do that kind of crazy behind the scenes stuff where you're, you know, manipulating people and all of that. I'm very lucky in that I'm really interested in everything I do. So I kind of, for lack of a better word, think of myself as a bit of a cheerleader. I talk about, you know, I like the idea of getting the message about what this awesome thing I'm working on is, and telling people about it and getting people to get on board and get excited about it as well. Yeah. Like a festival or something that I've been working on, you know, we've worked on it from the launch where we've talked about what it's going to happen. We've done announcements where, you know, we're telling the world in kind of a press conference or a press release. A press release is a document that outlines whatever, you know, you're announcing, and there's different ways of doing it, but basically what the key event is, and then kind of explaining in larger detail what is going on. But we've done announcements, we've done different ticket sales, we've done different interviews where you connect your client with people, with reporters that you think would be able to tell the story effectively, and that's a loaded statement, but we can get into that later. And then, working on site, making sure that reporters are brought in, making sure that everything is going smoothly in terms of the general event, and then doing, of course, any kind of follow-up of sending photos after, making sure that it's in all of the outlets that you want it to be in.
So it's really about dotting every I, and every I that you didn't even think about to begin with.
Absolutely. I think of myself as a pretty organized person. My colleagues laugh at me. I do.
That was an inside joke from when we were 5. I apologize.
Well, to be quite fair, I feel like I'm probably not organized in my personal life, but for work, I'm extremely organized, and that's probably why in my personal life I'm not, because I only have so much brainwidth. But I'm very organized for work. I have a million to-do lists. There's so many different aspects of it, and like I said, you were saying before, the buffer between, I feel like I'm the conduit. I feel like I really am the one that is going from my client and what they want to get across to being realistic. Sometimes that's important, and to seeing where can I put them? Where is the best place for them to be able to tell their story? A food festival is not going to go to CBS Sunday Morning, but a museum, maybe. We need to get in front of people that would buy tickets to something if they need for ticket sales. Or sometimes it's just telling the story of a museum exhibit and what the history is. And the ticket sales are important, but it's really more of a narrative about whatever collection they have. And so I get to kind of go and jump into all these different types of events and types of clients, which I like, and find stories. I consider myself a storyteller. I like to dig in and see what are the interesting things that people, there's the surface story, and that's the announcement and the press release and all of that. But what are the interesting stories behind the scenes? What are people working on? What are their passions? Because, like advertising, you were talking about people that are interested in certain things because it made them laugh or it made them sentimental. I consider that part of my job as well. The part where it gets difficult for PR is I can't control that story, like you were saying. So I try to find a place where it would fit and do the best that I can to tell that story and supplement it with interviews with people, with my clients. But, I can never guarantee what that story is. That's just from years and years and years of knowing reporters who are going to be interested in what you're doing. A lot of PR gets a lot of backlash, and, a lot of reporters will say PR, people will just send a million emails. I really try to target and focus on the particular reporters that I think would be interested. They need to fill space. They need to write content. So let me find something that might be interesting for you. Let's talk about something that not everybody is talking about, and make it beneficial for all.
So then, thank you. That's an amazing definition, really a very personal definition that is blatantly absent from Campbell. Can you also talk a little bit about how you got into PR? So what brought you to this? I showed them your internships, but when you went to college, what did you want to study? And how did you come to being a vice president at a major media relations firm?
So I went to NYU, and I saw an advertisement actually in the career section, which is a little bit different because I'm an old lady now, but in the career section for all my children, because the person looking for interns, internship coordinator, had gone to NYU. So goodness knows you guys have amazing career resources up at Syracuse. But I found all my children, and I really wanted to work in television. I thought that was kind of where I wanted to do my storytelling, though that has veered off course. But so I really wanted to do television. I worked at all my children. I did everything there. All the photocopying, did a million errands, went and got makeup once for Susan Lucci at, you know, Barney's. Like, I was doing everything, and I loved doing it. The people were great there. I would say I read every single thing I photocopied. So, you know, it helped me realize all the different departments. You know, I was making photocopies for props department. I was making photocopies for casting. So I was able to see all of those different things. And from there, I actually had studied, taken a couple of PR classes at NYU. That wasn't my full major, though I probably took enough classes for it to be my minor. So I actually went and knocked on the door of the ABC Daytime PR head because I had worked there and because I had access already inside. And I asked him if I could intern for him. He said yes. I interned with him for a semester. And then through my connections there, I interned for a semester at Soap Opera Weekly, which I just wanted to see kind of the magazine world and, you know, writing really quickly. I wrote a lot of random posts about, you know, the super couples that were very, very important to my readers. So I love soap operas because I'm a dork and I really enjoyed it. So I got to kind of do these little posts, write really quickly, kind of see that fast-paced atmosphere. Even though it was for a magazine, it was a weekly magazine, and I was updating their website a lot. So did that. And then I found Z100 actually kind of randomly through an organization here in New York called the Center for Communication. They were doing different panels, and they had an in-studio visit, and I went and gave them my resume that day. And they were kind of surprised because they thought I was an undergraduate, and I had actually graduated already. But I went there, and I worked in promotions. I drove the truck. I gave away stickers. I went on the mic. You know, I did everything. And then I started helping them in the media relations department and started doing all of the press in the back, the press rooms for Jingle Ball and Zootopia, which used to be the summer program. So I really saw what a press room looks like for the first time. In a press room, just to have an idea, you guys all know what a step and repeat is, I'm sure. It's that background on a lot of photos, and there'll be different logos on it. And the idea is that someone walks in front, can have a photo, and they can step, and it'll be repeated. So they step, and the same photo will be taken because all the logos are all strategically placed all throughout the entire step and repeat. So I saw, you know, you bring the celebrity in or the musician in, they're standing in front of that step and repeat. And if you look the other way, you can see, you know, 60 photographers, 50 photographers, and reporters. And so that's a very manic and frenzied place. And so I was able to work there and see it, you know, just watching my boss, who was amazing. And you know, I did that for 2 years, and I've helped out since then. And it's really important to watch other people doing it. I feel like a lot of my job is, you know, on learning as I go, but also just being aware of these people that, you know, really know how to do it. I've been here at Rubenstein for 10 years now. I started off as an assistant, you know, still continue to make photocopies. I made photocopies last week. So, you know, that never changes. You know, when I'm at a press conference, I will start putting together seats. So that's really important to me to stress. It's not, you know, you got to kind of jump in and do what's got to get done. So that's really important for me.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you going through all the nuances of what you do on a day-to-day basis, and especially that, you know, you guys might work internships which are menial, right? I am getting coffee, I am making copies, but it's about turning that experience into learning more and engaging more with other people. You have amazing resources here at Newhouse, but, you know, there's some resources that allow you to practice public relations, practice advertising in a very real concept. And it's about really seeing what's happening outside and around in other people as well.
And it's very important to me just to say, like, now, you know, I have an assistant, which is kind of crazy to me when you look back at that picture. But I have an assistant, and I think she is amazing. And I really do my best to give her opportunities to write and to give her my critiques. And I feel like that's kind of the whole world. I can be giving, in a nutshell, I can be giving her critiques, and then I go into a meeting and someone's giving me critiques. I'm constantly trying to learn, and honestly, I'm trying to give back as much as possible, because it really is about just getting the experience and jumping in there. And, you know, there's places that your students could be doing now of volunteering with different nonprofits or different causes that they really believe in, and kind of getting some experience right now. I mean, it's a whole different world. They can get it quicker.
So can you tell us a little bit about what the most important skill is in your job? So if somebody wanted to go into PR, what would you tell them they needed to hone in order to excel, aside from organization, which you already described?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things. One, I say the first thing I do when someone starts working with me, is I tell them to read everything. And I know that sounds crazy and completely overwhelming and kind of impossible in this world, but just to have a general idea. I mean, I work in New York City. Most of my accounts are based in New York, though some are based on the West Coast. It's important to me that I'm at least skimming or reading through the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Post, the Daily News every day. Being aware of what the media landscape is, and quite frankly, being aware of what reporters are writing about, because how am I going to pitch someone and know what they want if I don't know what they're already writing about? Someone's not going to just write something because I want them to, though goodness knows I've tried. But it's really a matter of being aware of the media landscape. So reading everything, and I kind of think you become the ultimate cocktail guest, cocktail reception guest, because you can just kind of talk a little bit about everything. I would say also really being passionate about certain things, and just being really interested in that. And then the other thing I would say about skills, and I know this is just in terms of your college students, being able to write is super important, and not being afraid to kind of just jump in and try anything. I took some writing classes, but I would probably recommend taking journalism classes. I think that's really important, to be able to write in different levels of the larger pieces, but also really quickly. And the more experience you have doing it, the better. I still get nervous when I have to write a full release, but I can bang it out, just because of all of the experience I've had. But it's important to have that confidence in your writing. So I would recommend writing classes for sure.
And we'll go with one or two more questions, and then we'll open it up to the floor. So if you guys have any questions for her, think about them, and she'll field a couple questions before we break for the day. What was your favorite project that you've had the opportunity to work on, or one of the most interesting that you'd like to share with the students?
Well, one of the ones I worked on recently was with a visual artist named Doug Aiken, and he worked on a project called Station to Station. And I had actually, I'm realizing that my poster in the back is of the Hirshhorn Museum. I had worked with him around an exhibit he had done called Song 1 at the Hirshhorn, and had a great relationship with him and people in his office and studio. And we started working on it. Basically, Station to Station was this train that went across the country, and they created all of these different happenings. So we went to 10 different cities over the month of September in 2013, and there was different art happenings where people, artists, and musicians, and there were different types of food in each city. Local musicians would be in Pittsburgh and taking the train to Chicago with us. There was art studios on the train that they were creating different pieces. There was a recording studio on the train. It was all about just creating music and being inspired by the landscape as we went across the country. We started in New York and we ended up in Oakland, California. So it was this amazing experience, and I heard about it as, oh yeah, we want to do this train project, more than a year beforehand. And I was able to work with them as we talked about what it was going to be, helped to get Doug's vision and the entire project's vision together, and talk about how to explain that to the general public. And also we had all these different events. So, we had to reach out to local media in all these cities. We had to make sure that people knew they could buy tickets. And then I was actually on site on the train with them the entire month. So we would be on the train. I would be dealing with media while we were on trains, different stops on the train, having them do interviews with the artists that were there. So I was facilitating all of those. And then we would get to the city. I would be doing press check-in, making sure press that was there were able to get in, making sure that I was able to facilitate interviews. I was standing in the photo pit, making sure that photographers weren't taking more than the 3 minutes they were allowed. So doing all of these different aspects and then just getting back on the train again. It was kind of a culmination of everything I worked on. And it was kind of crazy with thinking of, my Z100 days and how working promotions and getting in the car and getting on the train, it was all kind of very similar. And I felt very proud of it. And I think it was an amazing experience. And it shows that you have no idea what your internships or what you do, how it will come back and how it will really help you.
So I have one of two questions. You can decide, or maybe we'll take a poll over which ones you'd like to hear her talk about. I was either going to ask her how digital media and social media has changed her job. She's been in this position. She's been in the industry for 12 years and watched MySpace come and go, Facebook emerge, Twitter, right? So that's one question I could ask her. I could also ask her what her thoughts are on the representation of women in PR. And how the stereotypes of Samantha, and I don't watch the shows, I apologize, it's the only one I know, have affected her job and her as a person. So we'll take a little poll. I'll turn you around so you can see the poll. Right, there we go. Okay, we'll take a little poll. How many of you would like to hear her talk about digital media? Okay, that's a lot of hands. How many of you would like to hear her talk about stereotypes? All right, so we're going to go with digital media first. We'll probably have enough time for stereotypes if you like, but very briefly, how has digital media affected the PR industry?
I mean, it's another aspect of it now. So you can no longer not do something on that. When we do a full campaign, there is always a Facebook and Twitter and many times Instagram whole thought pattern and a whole campaign along with it. So we don't do anything in a vacuum anymore. I think that social media is great. I think that just as I am passionate about my different projects, I think that people get to be really passionate about certain things they're interested in, and it kind of can be helpful. Obviously, if people like your police story, that's not as positive, and then that goes into more of a crisis communications and having to deal with it. So I think that, I have the campaign that I do and that I work on and want to get the messages across, and hopefully that it becomes a viral sensation. But at the same time, you can't control what people are going to say, and I think that's a great thing. I've been very lucky. I work for a company. We have been told, we do not lie to media, and I would never send a media outlet or reporter that I have a relationship with any kind of information that I knowingly was not true. And quite frankly, I've worked on companies for many, many years, but my relationships with media is very important, and my reputation is very important. So I'm going off track, though, I know. But social media, I want to kind of, okay, for instance, let me give an example. I work with the ALS Association, Greater New York chapter. So Ice Bucket has been my entire summer, and that has been an amazing, amazing, organic, viral sensation. It started off with patients. We were very lucky in that 2 of the original patients' families were in the New York area. But Pete Frates and his family in Boston, they really, turned it out, and it was amazing. So once that viral sensation happened and everyone was getting on board, I was able to go with my chapter and, make sure they were talking to media about what is ALS, what is Lou Gehrig's disease. People are dumping ice buckets of water on them, but what are they trying to talk about? And we were able, I think, as the national organization, to really talk about this is actually making a difference. We were able to put out numbers right away when people were saying, people were saying it was slacktivism and, people are doing this, but they're not really donating. Well, we had proof. We had facts that people were donating. So we were able to go out to reporters with that information and say, within this 2-week span, within this 3-week span, in 2013, how much was raised? In 2014, how much was raised? So, I think that a matter of getting out the facts, making sure reporters were informed, they can still say whatever they want if they feel that it's not going to, we're really not making a difference, but these are the facts. And the fact is, over $100 million was raised over the last month because of ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. So, you know, the story, and obviously, I'm not going to show my bias, but there are news organizations that don't really necessarily care about the facts all the time, and they're going to say whatever they want to say, and that's fine to a degree. But my job is to inform, and my job is to make sure that you have the information to write your story or to go on the air, and I'm going to provide you with an interview. Do you want to talk about the Ice Bucket Challenge? Well, let's talk to a patient and their family and the struggles that they're going through. Lou Gehrig's disease is a horrific disease. People die within 3 to 5 years sometimes, you know, and so people need to see that and see that it's not just that viral video and that there were facts behind it. It really was able to help. So I don't know if that was a good example or not, but
no, that was a great example and an excellent case study of how social media is changing the PR environment.
And I do want to reiterate that that was completely viral, and that was completely organic. You know, there wasn't a PR firm behind it. We were able to give facts, but I think a lot of the times, you know, we do stunts all the time where we'll kind of try to, you know, the largest whatever, and like, you know, some kind of way and try to get a picture in the paper or some kind of, you know, stunty kind of thing. But
I believe the textbook calls that a pseudo event.
Oh, a pseudo event. Sorry, we call it stunts. But we, you know, those are sometimes really fun to do and just creative and out of the box, and it's great. But you know, I think with social media, it's really such a personal thing, what someone personally wants to represent of themselves. What I put on my Facebook, I believe in, you know, and I think with something like Ice Bucket, people, the fact that they had to participate and could kind of, you know, get other people to do it by calling them out, the fact that it was about them to a degree, and the fact that the world is a really scary place right now, and you know, you can't necessarily control the wars that are going on all over the world and these horrible things that are happening, but you can dump a bucket of ice water on your head and feel like you're helping people and give a donation and do something. And you know what? I'm fully on board. If someone's going to feel better about themselves but also donate to an amazing cause, more power to them.
So we have about 5 minutes left. I'd really like for you to hit one point, and then do we have any questions for Marisa? Does anybody have any questions? No? Maybe? No? I got one in the back. Fabulous. If not, I'm going to ask you about the stereotype, so there you go. But we got one in the back. Very briefly, before the student comes up, can you, what words of advice would you have? Just very briefly, what words of advice would you have for somebody considering PR or maybe not even considering PR?
You know, I never thought, and I'll quickly say about your stereotype thing, I never thought I'd work in PR because I thought it was kind of a Smith thing, and I was like, I'm not really into this like trendy nightclub stuff, and I'm, you know, I don't see myself like just, I don't know, in that world. You know, I like to go out, but I don't want to be working when I go out. So I really wasn't quite sure I wanted to do it, but I've always been very organized. I've always been really interested in reading a lot and knowing what's kind of going on. And I've always been really passionate about certain things, as Sharice knows. You know, I'll get really into a certain TV show, or I'll get really into a museum exhibit, or I like to know what's going on. And now I'm kind of in the world where I can tell other people really cool things that are happening. And you know, it is maybe a little Pollyanna. I mean, my job is not completely, you know, positive all the time, but I look at it as a chance to be really passionate about things that are interesting to me. I'm lucky that I haven't worked on clients that, you know, are in different kind of fields that I'm not interested in. I'm not interested in law or, you know, finance or anything like that. But I am really interested in the arts and in culture and in food stuff, and so I get to work on these amazing accounts and talk to these really creative people all day. So.
Okay, thank you. Guys, we still have another 3 minutes, so please don't pack up. I can hear you packing up. And we're going.
Oh, it's so boring.
Oh, trust me, it happens every day, so don't worry about it. I'm just, don't pack up. We have a question from, please tell me your name. Do we have it on here? Yeah, there we go. Sophia.
I was just gonna ask, have you ever had to like combat negative publicity? And like what, if so, like what do you have to do in order to like take something that's gone viral in a bad way and make it positive?
Thank you. Excellent.
Absolutely. And that kind of negative, dealing with those negative is really kind of what crisis communications is all about. You know, there is a degree of trying to change the narrative, focusing on what the position is of your person and why they did something that may or may not have been controversial. And, you know, there's kind of the Olivia Popes of the world that can kind of fix that and really change it to the narrative. But, you know, it depends. I mean, really, what in those cases, what I've done is talk like I said, talk about what their reasoning was, which is, you know, sometimes very important, and really kind of talking about reshifting the conversation back to what the positive aspects were. There's many times where you can only control so much if someone's going to be resigning or whatever, but coming forward and being honest, I think that's the most important part, because people will catch you in the lie. I mean, we've seen this now with so many things will always come out to a certain degree. You can't bury things. You know, as much as people want to say they can bury things, as much as you want to be on television and say you can bury things, things come out. So especially in this world where everybody, you know, there's not just the camera, but there's side camera. Someone else is taking a picture, a camera of the, you know, video of the camera. So, you know, shifting the narrative and that I feel like is probably a whole other class. But it is, you know, it is something that comes up. It is absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Can we get a round of applause for Marisa for joining us at a ridiculous hour? Thank you so much, and thank you all. Have a wonderful weekend. As a quick note, stop this. As a quick note,